The drummer had that kid up there bashing the cymbals like, no, this is how you hit it. Kelly Keagy.
Awesome.
Let me do that again. Kelly Keagy. Oh. I like, there's a song that we put on our first album called Night Ranger. And it was, you know, we had a name, the first name that we had chosen was Ranger. So we had an album cover that said, it said Ranger on it. And we wrote this song called Night Ranger. It was about this guy that used to come to our shows in San Francisco. And we named him the Night Ranger because he was a street guy. And he'd come to our shows all the time, and he'd be like dancing and rolling around the ground and shit. And so we just kind of named him that dude, you know. He's like all night long, and that guy is out. So when we had to change the name, we call it Night Ranger, but only because that title was on the record, and that we couldn't think of anything else. We had to come up with a name in 2 days, and they had to scrap 10,000 of the covers that they'd already made to getting ready for shipping. So we were like, oh my God, you know, it's like there's a Billboard put out something in there called 20 Years of Country Music, The Rangers. And we were like, the record company's head exploded, you know. They were like, ah, you know. So we said, oh, what about Night Rangers? So it was like, okay, that stuck. So we always kind of felt funny about that song, long story, even longer, that it sounded like a theme song. It's not about us. About somebody else. So that song has a lot of changes in it, great guitar playing, you know, it has a great thematic like lick in it, you know, so that would be my favorite. I know, who knew? It was like when we were first putting the band together, I started singing more and more and more, you know, and then we started going, you know, we got asked to be on this tour with Sammy Hagar. And, you know, it was the tour that he had the car on stage and this gigantic set, right? And we were like, Alan Fitzgerald was a keyboard player at the time, and he'd played with Sammy and he'd played with Ronnie Montrose. And, you know, he kind of knew what to expect. You know, it was like, okay, we're going to have 10 feet. How are we going to do this? You know, we got a keyboard player now. We got 2 big platforms. And then you're singing a bunch and nobody's going to see you. And he always hated that idea of like, Don Henley, he's up there singing, but his cymbals are in the way. He would like, it's so, you know. So we said, how can we do this? And so we tried it a couple times. We split the platforms up, the 3 guys in the middle. And I was always seen when I was singing. And for me, if you can't sing to your audience, like, what are you doing? You're like, got headphones on, you're in the bathroom, you know. It's like, so it was like, this is great. What a great idea. So that's what we did from then on. 1980. That's how we set up. You know? Yeah, I mean, you know, they're in business to make money, and they put out a lot of money to make records, and they want them to be a success. So, you know, after we had success with Sister Christian on the second album, you know, I mean, they would be like, you know, okay, we need that ballad, and we were like, well, if it comes, great, you know. You know, as we got further on with that too, we actually turned the 4th album in Man in Motion in without any ballads on it. And they just laughed and they went, you know, oh, really? You know, no ballads? You know, there's, you know, Night Ranger is, you know, Sister Christian. And we were like, well, sometimes, you know. So it was kind of all about that. We were kind of frustrated at that point. We were like, wow, you know, we're getting pushed to do something that you know, that's not coming natural. So that's what happened with that. And then of course they said, well, you got to have a ballad. So we said, well, let's see what happens. And so we went back in and Jack and I wrote Restless Kind. And it turned out it was great. It was a great song. So we were like, yes, it came. You know, nice. You know. Well, I'm always the way, I always think this way, and I always think it's, you know, it's probably the right way to think for me, is that stuff changes all the time. And it's a good thing. I mean, look at in the 60s, I grew up in the 60s, when the Beatles came out, they were like radical. The hair and their sound and everything. So every 5 years, stuff's got to change, you know? And I just totally embraced it. I thought, man, this is heavy. I've always been into guitar, Hendrix, The Cream, all those bands from the 60s that had guitar. I was all over it. So I thought, man, this is great. This is really great. At the same time, I was wondering where I fit in. But what you do as a musician is you just try and go with it. You don't try and be that. You just try and, it's like, okay, I'm here for the long haul to play music. So whatever that is. And so I started writing with other people and, and stuff like that. I remember seeing the first video that Nirvana put out, and I was stunned. I was stunned because of what they were projecting as their image. It was young, which I thought was great. I'm all about, rock and roll is youthful anyway, so it's supposed to be like that. But I thought that the music in general was so different and so cool. The way they were tuning their guitars down, the things had a huge foundation, and then I just thought it was all on the edge. Everything was like laid out, like everything was like, nothing hiding. They weren't hiding a thing, and I can really appreciate that. That's what art is supposed to be. Music, art is all supposed to be like forward thinking. I think in a lot of ways it's supposed to be fresh and new, and I enjoy. I really thought that was a really good thing to happen at that time. Just like I say, every 5 years, something's got to change. You sit in one place and it just becomes boring, and then, yeah, why not go do something else then? If you're going to do the same thing, I was lucky with the band Night Ranger. We enjoy writing songs together. We also enjoy doing different styles. So we've always been about that, trying to push it a little bit as far as the style of what we do. Things start changing a little bit, I mean, when you're doing you do like 4 albums, and every year you do an album, you start to go, what are we going to write about? What's it going to be? So after that, we tried to change things up a bit. Brad and I had a version of Night Ranger, and we also had other projects, solo projects that we're writing for. So yeah, we just kept going. We just kept going. What we wanted to do was just be creative. When you want to be creative, you just let that dictate where you're going. And I think that's why we're still around. That's why we came back together too. Is that we wanted to be creative. We knew each other very well. Grew up together. So when you're in that kind of environment, you just it's like it's glorious. It's great. And the fans are amazing. I mean, the fact that we've been around for 35 years is like crazy. We're still like of the mindset of like, we just want to do another record. Like after the first one was successful, we were like, how did that happen? Okay, I hope that we can sell enough records to do another one. That's as far as we were looking. We weren't thinking we were going to be like big stars for our whole lives, It's like, let's just get that far and then see what happens, So.
Hot summer night down by the lake, I saw you sitting there making no mistake. Girl, you took my breath away.